What is Winner's Circle Inc.?
This 2008 registered charity prepares children for the transition from primary to secondary school.
Are parents involved?
Yes, parents are sensitized about the important role they play in this process and their children's development.
Winner's Circle Inc., helping you be a winner by making the right choice.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Parent Webinar Series hosted by Winner's Circle Inc. and Camp Transition. My name is Jennifer Burrows, and I will be your host for this evening. The 2024 Parent Webinars are sponsored by the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, and at this time, we just want to extend a heartfelt thank you to them for supporting our 2024 programs. This evening, we have a phenomenal lineup of speakers in store for you. But before we hear from them, and they will be discussing the realities of secondary school, what every parent needs to know, we would love to know who is in the online building this evening. So we would love for you to state your name, and you can tell us either where your child is going to be attending school this upcoming September, or you can tell us something that you are grateful for this evening. All right, good evening, Rochelle. Good to have you again. Welcome, welcome. I can go first. I am thankful for AC because it is hot outside. I don't know if anybody ventured out today, but it has been hot. And thankfully, I happen to be in a room with AC right now. So I am thankful for that. And the gift of life as well. Yeah. All right, who is going to be next this evening? There's so many of you here. We want to hear from you. Good evening, Natalie Carvin. Good to have you. And I guess your child is going to be attending Courage and Perry, CP. Well, congratulations to them. And welcome, welcome to you. Wonderful. Welcome, Amanda.
Good evening. I am thankful for life, and my daughter will be attending Graydon City Secondary School.
Welcome, and congratulations to her. Congratulations to your daughter. All right. Good evening, Shakira. She is grateful for the opportunity to access the valuable information being shared this evening. Good evening to you. And her child will be attending Combermere. Congratulations to your child. All right, we still have some people trickling in. Would love to hear from at least one more person before we start. Good evening, Kim Ashby. And she is grateful for life. Good evening to you. Good evening to you. All right, so we are going to start, and I am going to go ahead and lead us in a word of prayer. So Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your mercy and your grace. We thank you for bringing us together again to learn and to make sure that every parent is equipped to better support their child's transition to secondary school. I thank you for Winner's Circle and Camp Transition and the collaboration. We thank you for the support from the Maria Holder Memorial Trust. We thank you for the speakers this evening, Mr. Dimitri Hoyt, Mrs. Keisha King Ben, and Mr. Maurice Beckles. And we ask that you would give them the wisdom so that they can release the practical tips and strategies to the parents so that every parent feels a bit more equipped as they accompany their child's transition to secondary school. So Lord, we give you this session and we ask that your perfect will be done in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right, welcome again. Many of you would have trickled in before we started earlier. My name is Jennifer Burrows, and I am the host of the 2024 Parent Webinar Series. This series is held by Winner's Circle Inc. in collaboration with Camp transition. And these are both organizations that are focused on equipping both students and parents as children make the transition from primary to secondary school. Madam Justice Barbara Cook Allen, she is the founder of Winner Circle Inc. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to attend this evening, but she does send her greetings as well. And Mrs. Grant will be in attendance a little bit later, and you will be able to hear from her. And so we are going to jump right in to our session for today. The topic is entitled Realities of Secondary School, What Parents Need to Know. And we are going to be hearing from 3 individuals, and I will introduce each of them as it is their turn to speak. And we're asking that all the questions that you may have as each presenter delivers from the topic this evening, that you write your questions down, make a note of all those questions that you have, or anything that maybe wasn't clear, and we will all answer our questions at the end of all of the presentations, okay? And so we are going to begin this evening with Mr. Dimitri Hoyt. And he is a current student at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, who recently completed his first year in the law program. He is also a former student of the St. Michael's School, having graduated from the institution in 2023 following completion of the 6th form program. While at the school, he served as a senior prefect, a peer supporter, and a member of the school's choir, while also gaining 7 CXCs and 4 CAPE qualifications, the latter of which includes a grade 1 in law. In addition to being a student, Dimitri is also a singer, having entered the Junior Monarch competition in 2018 and becoming a finalist in the Richard Stout Teen Talent competition that same year. He became a semi-finalist in the competition in 2019 and 2022. So Dimitri, we welcome you, and I give it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, everyone. You guys can hear me, right? All right, cool, just making sure. All right, so based on the introduction from Jennifer, as you can tell, I am quite young, so I know all about the transition to secondary school all too well. It's very fresh and very recent in my brain. So I'm just here to give a couple pointers and a couple tips to the parents as they navigate this transition as well. The first thing being, as parents, you guys are going to be anxious about this transition, and that is normal, because not only are your children going through a big transition moving from primary to secondary school, but you're also doing that as well. They're entering a completely new atmosphere. They're entering a new stage in life altogether. So in addition to them being very nervous, you will be as well, and that is completely fine. Your kids are not going to be moving from being the youngest in the oldest in the school, being the youngest. So it's going to be a big transition for you as well. The first thing is that support is going to be very, very necessary. Something as simple as talking to your children every evening when they come home from school can go a long way. I know it did for me when I was in primary school, secondary school, even now in university. I have conversations with my mother every evening when I come home. She asks me how my day goes, and we just have that conversation. And that interaction really does go a long way in making your children feel a lot more at ease, and it makes them feel heard. And it gives you a chance also to gauge their emotions and see where they're at and see how they're feeling as they move into their new school and into their new environment. So, having those conversations are going to be very, very important. Another thing is that, as they move into this new phase, time management is going to be very, very, very key. I know in primary school, they would have about, 6, 7 subjects, somewhere around there. But now they're going to be moving into secondary school, and in first form, if I remember correctly, it was anywhere between 11 and 13 subjects. So, that's a pretty big jump. I know they're going to be doing many other different subjects in addition to that. So things like in addition to the math and the English they would have done, now they're going to be doing science, social studies, history, geography, that sort of thing. So they're gonna have to learn to manage their time very, very well, especially them being engaged in other extracurricular activities, whether that is athletics, other sports, choir, cadets, whatever the case may be. They're gonna have to learn how to balance all of these different tasks to make sure that they can do everything while also maintaining good grades in school and making sure that they keep up with their studies and their homework and everything that they need to do. And that doesn't just stop in secondary school either, you know, even when you get to university like I'm in, you know, you have to be able to manage your time and make sure you stay on top of everything. Like Jennifer said, I was in the choir, I was a part of peer supporters, I did cadets for a little bit. So what I found worked great for me was setting my own personal due dates. So say I have an assignment that's due, let's say today's Monday and the assignment is due the Friday, I will give myself my own personal due date of around Wednesday to finish it so that I'm not scrambling the day before, even the day out to try to put something together. And that time can just be used to peruse and make any sort of edits that I need to make, but at least the bulk of the project and what's needed is already there. And now it's just finalizing it and making it into the last draft to have it. Another thing is that in secondary school, your child is going to be working with a lot of different personalities. There are going to be a lot of different people they come into contact with, just like with any normal job, they're going to be working with a whole bunch of different people. And collaboration is going to be very, very important, especially as they do these group projects that teachers seem to love to give everybody. You know, and they're going to come into contact with students that don't want to pull their weight. That's the reality, unfortunately. I know I had my fair share of that. So it's important to teach your child how to navigate working with different people, working with difficult people, because they are gonna come across those people. So it's important to teach your child how to work with those people civilly and to be respectful, so that they can get the job done and so everything can be done, so that they won't be in any sort of trouble with the teacher or whatever. Or if there is that issue of somebody not pulling their weight, then they can talk to somebody and hopefully have that issue rectified. Being in the digital age of social media, I have seen firsthand that it can influence how your child looks at their new school and what experiences they are going to have. I know when I was getting ready to go into UE, I saw a lot of TikToks of, you know, where to go, where to avoid, who to avoid, that sort of thing. And while some of those tips may have some sort of traction to them or may have some truth to them, it's important to remind your child to go in with an open mind, with an open heart, because not everybody's experience is going to be the same. So you have to make sure that they go in with an open mind, with open eyes, ready to make their own experience and forge their own path and not going off of other people's experience. Of course, some of the stuff that they would have heard is going to have some truth and some of it will be helpful as they go through this journey. But, you know, as people like say, pick sense from nonsense. So it's important that you remind them to have their own experience and not be so fixated on what others' experiences are, because now they have to go through it for themselves. So they have to forge their own path and experience their own secondary school life. Another thing is, you know, teach your children how to be confident in themselves. You know, I remember when I was younger, and even sometimes now I struggle with confidence a little bit, especially as I go into exams and doing assignments and that sort of thing. But if you can, from now, teach your children how to be confident in themselves so that they can do their assignments to the best of their ability and so they can go in and know that, you know, let's say they have an exam, they studied all the time and everything, they can go in and say, you know what, I got this, I studied for it, I worked hard for it, so I know I'm gonna go in there and ace this thing, get 90% or 100% or whatever it is they want to get. So, just instill them that confidence from young so that they can take it through not just their secondary school life, but throughout their entire life, because confidence is going to be a very, very big thing, not just as it relates to school or work, but also as they interact with other people and as they get older. So just instilling them that confidence from young. And then the final thing, and I know that a lot of parents might want to be in denial of this or something, but the reality is your child is growing up. There's no way around that. Your child is growing up, they are getting older. So, you have to, first of all, you have to be able to trust them. You have to trust that the values that you would have instilled in them from young are going to come out as they go through this new phase. And also as they're getting older, you need to start giving them gradual independence. Not too much at this age, but start letting them be independent a little on their own. And like I said, trust that what you would have taught them is going to come out and it's going to shine through as they go through this new phase. But you know what, your child is growing up and that is scary. I know my mom was a little scared as she realized I was getting older and stuff. But I think the biggest thing when it comes to your children is trust and making sure that you taught them everything that you could, taught them all the good qualities and everything that you could have taught them possible, and just trusting that they're gonna go out into the world and just remember everything that you would have instilled in them. They're gonna go out and use it and become good, upstanding citizens of not just Barbados, but the world. So just trust them and give them that gradual independence and watch them flourish. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I just want to wish all the parents here the best in their new journey and your kids as well. Because like I said, it's not just your children going through this transition, it's you as well. So I'm wishing you guys all the best. And I know that your children are going to go on to do amazing things. So I am just looking forward to that.
Thank you for these points that you shared, Dimitri. Everybody go ahead and drop a clap, drop an emoji in the chat for Dimitri. These were very solid points, and it was great to hear from the student perspective as well, how it was for you and what you would recommend for the parents as a student yourself. So thank you very much, Dimitri. Everyone, if you have
No
any
problem.
questions for Dimitri at all, please go ahead and just write them down, jot them somewhere so that when we come to our time of Q&A, you can readily unmute and ask your question. So thank you again, Dimitri.
No problem.
All right, so we are going to move into our second speaker for the evening, and she is Mrs. Keisha King Bent. She is a wife and mother of 4 boys ranging from 5 years to 13 years old. Her first son will be commencing 3rd form, and her second son will be starting 1st form this coming September. Keisha works with a professional services firm in the capacity as a risk management manager, and this evening she will be sharing on the parental perspective on this topic. So welcome, Keisha.
Thanks so much, Ms. Burrows, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'll share a bit about my perspective as being a parent, as I've been with the secondary school for a bit, and having my first son and now my second son. So I'll go through a few points and I'll try and make them short enough that you can still make some notes and keep it for future reference as school starts next month. So firstly, I speak about parent support. So the effort applied and the supervision given to your child during the common entrance cannot stop. Your parent support is extremely critical. Remember, your child will be doing as many as 13 subjects, as Dimitri would have alluded to earlier, but the majority will have a timeline and deadlines for projects and tests. To be honest, you will need to reintroduce yourself to topics and subjects that you buried many years ago when you yourself were going to school in secondary school. You will need to relearn favorable and unfavorable topics. And you will need to reintroduce yourself to those topics because after not doing them for many years. So you need to also help your child to help introduce any effective study techniques at the same time, because studying subjects is not just math and English. So example of your parent support would be like, when your child comes home, open their book, read a few of their notes. For me, my son had missing notes. And when I asked him, well, what happened to these missing notes or missing spaces in your exercise book? He couldn't tell me, and he had not started or initiated any follow-up to get any of these missing notes back in his book. And it's also good if it is you can meet another parent or befriend another parent, because there'll be times you need to get those notes because a test is coming and you need your son or your daughter to do reasonably okay in that test, but you need the notes. So having another parent on hand to collaborate on notes and even any upcoming tests will also be great. Another point I could mention too is that you have PTA meetings. Now, perhaps at primary school, you may have had a non-existent or non-functioning PTA meeting or body. But at this stage, attending a PTA meeting is going to be quite important, and it's really here perhaps you can meet another parent in the same class. For me, my experience was quite valuable, and I had the opportunity to have a general chit chat with the principal, with the vice principal. Also, I have been able to introduce myself to other teachers who were present at the same PTA. Much to my son's delight, I also took him to the PTA session, and he could also listen to the presentations that were being done. But understandably, he would have tuned out probably halfway the time presentation had started. And then at that point in time, he could tell me, well, who were the teachers that were present at the PTA. So I found it insightful. And, you know, when they see him, they'll see me, and then he can point them out to who the particular teachers were. Another meeting format you're going to experience would be forum level meetings. Now, these are extremely critical. When these meetings occur, you would have had some insight into topics being taught and assignments that were set. Remember, my first point was about opening your child's book and seeing what they did in class. You will also get to have some feeling about how your child is performing based on results of past tests or past homework submitted and it was corrected. And then when you quiz your child about what has happened on the subject matter, you will then know, okay, they're not getting it. It's not working. And you can start to make your points. So when you go to these PTA meetings, you can better prepare questions for that same meeting. And the teacher will also provide feedback on your child as well. But please remember, the time slot for you to sit in front of the teacher is probably about 10 minutes. You will always have a very long line to meet certain teachers, especially the ones in math and English. Also, for me, I had my child sit beside me because it's his first term, it's first form, first term. So the teachers are trying to figure out, well, so they have a name in front of them in a mark book and marks beside it. So they can say, okay, your child did well. But seeing your child now, they can put, you know, like where your child sits in their head, they can better understand who the child is that they're speaking about. Because for me, when my son first went to first form, the teachers had him mixed up with another guy who had the same build as him. Eventually that got sorted out, but at first they thought my son was that son, etc. But that's finished with me. On another point, you have extracurricular activities. Now you're going to have many activities that your child can choose from, but encourage them to at least join one of them. Because some children do not integrate very well into a school environment that may be so big or much bigger than their current primary school. So it can be quite scary. Remember that generally the acceptance at any given level could be about 150 students in any given school year. So when they join this group, they can, once they're able to identify themselves with a positive group that displays positive behavior, that activity will help them integrate into the school system. My son, on the first day of school, he joined cricket. And the rest was, and it still is, history on his involvement in cricket. That's how he integrated into the school. Now, I mentioned that, you know, you have 150 students or thereabout being accepted into any given year. And obviously your child now becomes a dime a dozen. So, and a school teacher could possibly, in some instances, perhaps be teaching, 3 or 4 classrooms of students. So when you have an issue and you email the teacher, the subject teacher, you may not exactly get a ready response. Some teachers do it well and some teachers don't. But you can't crucify them initially because they have a lot of students to handle that point in time. But if you know your math is quite critical, there are other ways that you can actually make contact. Remember, the PTA was one of them. You can also escalate matters via the form teacher. If that does not work, then you go to the year head. That is the chain of command. Remember that's how the chain of command works. You do the subject teacher, then the form teacher, then the year head. Again, as I mentioned, PTA meetings are the way to introduce yourself, and more communications will be given to you on how your school functions and how you escalate matters. So attending these meetings are very critical. That being said, so you at home with your child, I'm encouraging you to be inquisitive. So Dimitri mentioned that he enjoys his conversations with his parent, so you need to do the same. So as your child integrates into this environment, they become more involved. Keep asking your child questions about their day and if they made any new friends. They may need to talk about different encounters that they may have on a daily basis, whether it's with a teacher or with a child. Some children may speak up, some will not. You have to know your own child. So be alert to any changes. It could be changing speech, changing behavior, changing how they carry themselves, and the list goes on. But you need to be very knowledgeable and I should say very clued into your child so you can notice these changes. For me, what I did, so my mom, I tell you my son's in cricket. So it's not only just a pick up and drop off at cricket or pick up on time and just go. I will, when I can kind of go and collect a little few minutes earlier and I will observe what's happening in the vicinity, like which child is laying at the side of cricket on the field or who's talking to who. And I'm just observing when I look around. And then I can use that as my jumping board to be able to start answering a few questions. Who's who, what they're good at, do they bat well, how many runs they made, what form they're in. And then I can start getting a better understanding of who my son's new friends may be in and outside the classroom. But that was my scenario. You will have to find yours. I know as a parent, I know I still do it sometimes. I may shout, but I have to remind myself that I must speak calmly to my child, well, I should say children, when I have matters that may upset me. And the idea is that you really want to keep trying to keep these communication lanes open. Your child will be exposed to topics which you may have deferred to discussing with him at a later date. And such topics may be about stages of adolescence. I will warn you, if you don't know now, or I should say, if your child doesn't know now, they will certainly know probably by the end of first form or during first form are those topics that you did not want to talk to them about. So be open and talk to your child because they will know, whether it's via cell phone, whether it's via all the YouTubes, and I know Maurice will talk lots more about that matter. So stay tuned for the next speaker. Also, you have peer pressure. So peer pressure comes in different forms. For me, my husband and I decided that we were not going to give my first son a cell phone. And he has repeatedly voiced his concern about how his friends tell him he has no cell phone or how he's not given a cell phone. And, so it goes on in that matter. So again, how did I know this? He communicated it. So having those open lines of communication, I'm there to understand, well, what pressures my son is currently experiencing at school. I may not know all, but I gotta keep my lines of communication open to be able to understand what he's experiencing. All right, Google Classroom. So we know this was more or less introduced during COVID. That's how, when we were home, that's how the school children were taught. And it still occurs to this day in the secondary school. We still use it. And generally some teachers are going to use it to post assignments or even post class notes. Not every teacher will do it, but it is still a mode of communication. Many a time my son has missed a test or an assignment because he did not log into his account. And thankfully, I logged into his account and I have it on my phone. So every time I see an email coming through from a teacher, I can quickly look at it, or even if any assignment comes up in the Google Classroom, I look at it. If I didn't tell him that he had an assignment, he is totally clueless and will go to school the next day, not knowing of what he was supposed to have done. So as I told you, teachers will sometimes use a tool and sometimes they won't. And otherwise, some teachers may just tell you items or any deadlines in the classroom, hoping your child writes it down. But sometimes the teacher would use the Google Classroom. So just encourage your child to listen and be attentive. And I have not stopped telling this and repeating this to my son, and I will still tell my other son as well. And I think, this will really continue until my son decides to settle down and focus in class, that he can capture all this that's flying past his ears. So Google Classroom, log in on your phone and make sure you're checking it even more than your child. As I mentioned about group assignments, so your children are going to be in a group. They're not going to know everyone in that group, and you need to know what is the role of your child in that group project. You'll be surprised that these groups will start the project 2 days before it's due, after having at least 2 weekends to complete that project. It is extremely nerve-wracking to say the least. And at some point in time, I actually had to call a parent from the group to get matters started out, to figure out who will be the group leader to get things moving. So again, want to go into the Google Classroom and want to follow the child's book. Hopefully, you will know when a project is due. All right, I can now speak about some monitoring, some screen time, and Maurice is going to go and delve into that more. And on my end, limit access to those devices. Secondary school life is a totally different ballgame from primary school in some aspects. It is a marriage of schoolwork, adequate rest, and I would dare say at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night, and play. So 3 things: play, adequate rest, and schoolwork is a marriage that your child now has to get accustomed to, or even get better accustomed to, because it's a different playing field. And devices used negatively will not support the goal of your child what's in school. So to come on to my last 2 points, I am going to speak about goal setting. I just spoke about goals. So when a ship sets on its journey, the captain monitors the weather, the captain checks the engine, and the captain plots the journey of the intended destination of the ship. My question to you is, what is your child's goal on entering secondary school? Yes, your child's going to tell you they want to be X or they want to be Y. But let's make it a little smaller and simpler to achieve attainable goals at this first form level. You don't want to overwhelm your child at this stage, because remember, they're going from a few subjects to much bigger set of subjects. They're moving from primary school to secondary school. Start at a level that you know your child can achieve. For example, now please note these are examples. Let's say you're going to do the 13 subjects, and of those subjects, 5 subjects you may get 70% in. And that you also mentioned one of the goals is that you can't fail anything, because you will find that your child may be a high flyer in primary school, and then all of a sudden, it's okay just to pass. That's a new language. Just pass. Just pass. You don't want their levels to drop. Remember, it's a different environment they're in. Each school will have its own merit system, where they may have an awards or recognition based on child's marks at midterm or end of term. Again, you will only know this when you go to PTA meetings, or if you read all the emails that come through to your email account, if the school wants your email account as well as your child's account. So you have to be clued in as well. And last but not least, so I spoke about the goals and I spoke about the subjects, etc. Now you have to revise. Remember, it's 13 subjects. So please not let your child tell you there's no homework. It could be that there's no set homework. That's all right, but there's always revision to be done. At the first form level, a 15-minute recap of the subject is acceptable. Because when you look at their notes on any given lesson, the notes don't go past 2 pages. So it's not to say there's so much they can't recap. And also that means you have to read the same notes and you can quiz them orally. You don't have to be there so that they don't have to sit in a corner and just read a note. You can have a conversation about it. That's why I told you in my point 1, you've got to look at their notes as part of your parent support. Now the trick is not to let 2 days pass after the lesson has been taught, as your child may not remember anything taught in that classroom. That's from my experience. You can try to at least to review 2 or 3 subjects each evening, depending on the homework set or any extracurricular activities that are scheduled. But consistency is key, because when you get to that exam timetable, and on my end, the exam happens over a period of 5 days, morning and evening, and you fit in about 12 to 13 subjects, it is pure chaos. And then you know what? You're not even get to revise the night before. So if you can get revision started from the beginning, it'll be less pressure when it rolls up into the exam time period in 3rd term. And I know my son would mention he wanted to know if the teachers don't talk together in the form level, in the staff room, to figure out who's going to give a test this week or who's going to give an assignment this week. They do not talk to each other at that level. They have a subject, they have a topic and subjects to complete in the term. They're going to test you accordingly, depending on how far they reach the topic. So you have to be prepared. So that's where I will end, and I hope my comments were enough that can give you some insight, and that you go in with an open mind and continue to push behind your child so that they come out with reasonable marks at the end of each year. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mrs. King-Ben. This was a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you for sharing your perspective as a mom who has now going to be 2 boys into secondary school. And so everyone, you can go ahead and you can drop your emojis and your thank yous in the chat. And remember, if you have any questions at all or anything that you would, like to even comment on regarding Mrs. King-Ben's presentation, please jot those down and we will get to them once we enter our segment for our Q&A. So thank you again, Mrs. King-Ben. All right, so we are moving into our 3rd presenter for the evening. And he is no other than Mr. Maurice Beckles. He is an ICT professional with over 18 years of experience in technology and innovation, covering manufacturing, education, retail, and now international development. He holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's degree in international management with distinction from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. He currently serves as the Senior ICT Associate at UNICEF Eastern Caribbean, where he manages digital technology to enhance operational efficiency and design impactful development projects to support the well-being of children and young people. Beyond his professional role, Maurice is passionate about youth empowerment, having developed the UE Computer Science Society, bridging the gap between academic learning and real-world experience for our students. Maurice has one very curious 17-year-old son. So welcome, Mr. Maurice Beckles.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Just give me 1 second. I want to share my screen. Righty. And you guys can confirm. Are you seeing my screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Right, perfect. So my job this afternoon is really to share with you some basic information around the risks of your kids using the internet. I think everyone is pretty okay with all of the opportunities and rewards for using the internet, and but I think there's much to be said around parenting in the digital age, and I'll try to share quite a bit of it's a dense subject matter, but I'll try to make it as light as possible. And I'm also going to share the PowerPoint presentation with the team so that they can also share it with you for review later. So before I get going, I just want to say thanks again to the Winner Circle team. I think you're doing a great job ensuring that children and parents are prepared for this journey because it certainly is not an easy one. So let's dive into the subject matter. So the first thing that I want to share with you is that the foundation of your ability to influence your children online and offline behavior is trust. That is a very a very important thing to note. Trust is key. That's the underlying linchpin of everything that this presentation is going to be on. And there's a basic checklist that I like to share with parents to help them to establish a foundation for that trust. And that's the talk. It's called talk. And that checklist, it starts with T, is for talking. Talk to your child about, what happens online, as Keisha was highlighting, have those conversations with them and share, listen to them, share their concerns, and you share yours also. The A in the acronym TALK stands for agree. You want to agree on some basic ground rules around how technology is used, not just for the child, but for you as a family, so they don't feel that they're being singled out or being told, to do as I say and not as I do. The third, L, stands for learn. And you really need to learn about the platforms that your children love and take an interest in their life online. So whether you allow them to use TikTok or Facebook or any WhatsApp, any platform that they're using, you need to know about it. I would dare say you need to know more than them, but that's a bit difficult to do if as a parent you don't have a background in technology. But as much as you can, or leveraging persons in your network who have that experience or that ability to learn as much as possible about what your kids are doing online. And then the K stands for know. Know how to use the tools and the apps, how to get into the settings and make changes to protect your children online, right? And we'll dive into that a bit more later. Now, why is this important? Because most parents are unaware of the online backdoors into the home and into your child's lives that make them vulnerable. This can take multiple forms in terms of online abuse, hacking, exposure to material that you don't want it to be exposed to, etc. And then on top of that, to counterbalance that, really, I would say children often, as you build that relationship with your child, because you can't be everywhere at every moment, that trust then really solidifies, where your child would know, well, my parents wouldn't want me to be on this platform or engage in this conversation. And then it presents an opportunity where they can learn from you, and you can, instruct your child as you would see fit. So there are a few terms that I want to share again, because they're not inherent for everyone. There are a few that are more important than others, but as you start to do your own research and Googling, there are tools like ChatGPT and AI tools online that you can use to learn more about these terms. But I just wanted to share a few with you to get the ball rolling, to get you thinking about some of the vectors, negative vectors that can affect your children. So things like the darknet. The darknet is a hidden portion of the internet where persons can buy and sell illegal things and services without easily being seen. And it's quite difficult to get into, but I think, as some of you may already start to realize, children can quickly learn things and assimilate technology faster than adults. And you may be surprised how quickly your child may get into materials onto the darknet. Things like cyberbullying, I think this is much more popular, where, persons are much more familiar with this term in terms of, bullying online. Revenge porn, this is where someone would entice your child to send them compromising photos. Is usually within the context of some type of grooming, where they would build a relationship, whether it's, okay, we're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend, or you could trust me, or you're going to share one secret with you, so I want you to share one secret with me. And then once they have that information, they can use it to manipulate the child, or to, if there's a falling out in the relationship, then they use that against the child. So it's very important to talk to your children about what is safe to share online, etc. That also falls under the broader context of online sexual exploitation, when it goes into, obviously, nude and other types of material. Deep fakes is one that persons will become more familiar with over time. And this is with the rise of artificial intelligence. I know some of you may have been hearing about the term, is where computers can express sentiments and essentially simulate being a human, simulate intelligence. And they have advanced to the point where you can have a computer generate imagery that never occurred. So you can, upload pictures of a person and have a computer generate a video of that person committing an act or saying something that they did not say. And it's quite, you can go on YouTube and look up deep fakes. You will see lots of videos that like you would tell yourself, I'm 100% sure this is real, but it's all computer generated. Yeah, clickjacking is one that is that's a little more nebulous. And what that is you would go to a website and it would appear initially to be fairly straightforward, and it might have a button say click here to exit. But when you click on that button, it doesn't exit, it does something completely different. Like it allows the website to connect to your computer or download files, these sort of things. Video game gambling, I know it usually tends to be boys that are a little bit more into gaming, and they get quite entrenched in it, especially when they're doing it with their friends. But sometimes there are portals that allow persons to start gambling on games or gambling to get different implements or tools in the game that you need to be careful of. Copying and cheating, this is more related now in the context of AI, where, for example, a child may have to write an essay and they wait to the last minute, so they didn't have time, but they can go on ChatGPT or Gemini AI and say, hey, I need a 300-word essay on Arrow Barrow, and independence in Barbados, and there it goes. They have a 300-word essay. They copy and paste that into Microsoft Word, tweak it a little bit, and submit it as their own work. That is quite detrimental to your child's educational journey. You have to be careful to monitor that and make sure that they're not using AI to circumvent the learning journey. Cyber stalking, similarly, persons stalking somebody online. This is, putting posts on their Facebook or other social media, sending them harassing emails, etc. We tend not to see this as much here in Barbados, but we still do not at the same levels, obviously, as other places. So those are some of the initial terms. There are a few more that will be in the notes in the PowerPoint. And if you have any that you don't understand or that came to mind or not clear, when we go into the question and answer section, please feel free to quiz me on those. So what can you do? Well, let's start with a few basics, right? What can you do to keep your child safe online? The first thing is putting some safeguards in place, right? Keisha would have mentioned using there are lots of tools like Google's Family Link. Apple also has parental control software on their devices that you can use to limit and restrict not just the sites, but the amount of time that your child spends online. Spend time with your child online, like when they're browsing, when they're checking emails, you can shoulder surf, right? I just want to see what you're doing. I'm interested in what you're doing. And it gives you an opportunity to see the types of conversations that they may be having on WhatsApp, or the type of emails that they're receiving, or the comments that they're posting on, Google Classroom, etc. Again, promoting open communication, working with your child to develop your own code of conduct for being online. This is super important because, for example, there are times where someone may share information with your child that may be compromising of another child, and you don't want them to forward that information on, right? So developing a code of conduct is super important, and doing this collaboratively with your child gives them an opportunity to feel invested in the process. It's not that mommy or daddy is saying, this is what you have to do. right? You're saying, hey, let's have a conversation about what you think is appropriate, and let's make some rules between us so that you have that buy-in because they were part of the process, and they're much more likely to adhere to it because it isn't something being necessarily forced down on them, but they understand it's something that my parents are instilling in me for my own good, right? You know, one of the big things is teaching your kids how to navigate certain types of communication. So for example, whether it's a conversation that may be happening in a group chat about another student who was in a compromising situation or something negative happened to them. They may feel uncomfortable, but they may not feel, they may not want to be ostracized because they're the only person saying, well, I don't think this is cool to speak about, someone in this way. And sort of role playing a lot of these scenarios beforehand and discussing them with your child goes a long way in helping them to navigate them when they're online on their own. Because, in a lot of cases, especially as they navigate through secondary school, the amount of time that you're going to be spending with them online is going to become less and less. So I touched on some of these already in terms of supporting your child with parental controls. There are things that you can enable safe search in browsers on their devices. And what that does is that if let's say, for example, you search for, they may be searching for swim goggles, right? Or beach wear, fairly, generic term. They may be looking, for something to wear to the beach, but there may be photos and other inappropriate material that are tagged as that would show up in the search. Using safe search restricts those type of pictures or videos from showing up when they do the search, right? You can make adjustments to the privacy settings on your computer. One that is I see a lot more people doing now is covering the webcams when it's not in use, because in recent years there have been lots of situations where hackers have compromised machines and then remotely activated the webcam. So someone would be monitoring you remotely while you're using the computer. And especially for kids, that's something you want to make sure. There are these little webcam covers, and you can get some nice cute ones that go over the webcam that you can slide them on or off, which would, when you slide it on, it would open so the webcam can see you, and when you slide it off, it blocks the webcam, so that even if someone is able to compromise the machine, they're not, just looking at your child or looking at you remotely while you're using the computer or phone or whatever it is. I'll skip a few because I've touched on them before. Create device-free spaces. This is a really good one. I tend to prefer or suggest that the bedroom should be a device-free space, especially for kids. I don't want you in the bedroom using the device. I want you using the device in a public space where at any point in time, as parents pass, they can see what you're looking at or hear what you're listening to. Again, talk with your child about, what are safe and credible websites and types of content, where to get information online that's safe. And reminding them, and this is a very important one, that what goes online can't be recalled. Once you put information online, that's it. I know lots of kids are enamored with the idea of becoming a YouTube personality. You don't want to necessarily, I don't want to use the word dissuade, but be negative, because there are positive YouTubers. However, there's a big caution there in terms of the psychology behind being performative and, being rewarded or being motivated by what people think and the likes that are necessary, and what that leads people to do in order to get that type of feedback and recognition, which I don't think is necessarily healthy, especially for younger children who don't have certain barriers and controls in place at such a young age. So really chatting with them about, what they post online and what their friends post online is very important. Let's chat about some of the signs of distress when things go wrong. So Some of the key behaviors that you may observe with your child is, if all of a sudden they become withdrawn or secretive about their online activities, or withdrawn and upset in general, sometimes, having those conversations to understand what's going on. And here's where, trust is super important. Having cultivated that relationship, and that, communication style where you and your child have, meaningful and deep conversations often goes a long way in being able to sort of figure out what is going wrong when it inevitably does something, whether it's bullying or issue at school. You really need to have that relationship in place. Things like, if they're using the device a lot, things like if they're deleting messages, and most of you guys probably use WhatsApp, so I don't, if for any of my for my son, but I also have a niece and nephew, when I look at their devices, if they have disappearing messages on, I want to know, okay, why. Things like certain over the top emotional responses to things that they may be viewing on their device, maybe not everything, but cause the, hey, I'm a little curious, what are you laughing at, or what is going on, right? A big one is if they're hiding their screen when you pass by, or if they have, if they take down social media accounts or have secret accounts that you don't know about. Those are all signs that you need to start, digging a little deeper to figure out what's going on, or if there's some challenge. Yeah, the last two, avoiding social situations. This is very common when there's like when there's bullying going on, like they may be being bullied on Facebook or one of these other platforms, and all of a sudden they don't want to go to like cricket or parties with other kids that they usually would go and be quite happy to go to, right? So those are a few signs to look out for. Try to be non-judgmental, especially when you want to have these conversations, and let your children talk to you and explain what's going on. Never blame them, just say, hey, I just want to know, like, just talk to me, right? And try to drive that conversation. I added a slide because with AI is a game changer in terms of what your children are going to face using the internet. Once upon a time, you could be pretty sure if you Googled and you found a website, the information was usually true. It was usually not harmful, and you could take it with a certain level of trust, even if you needed to follow up and do a little bit more searching and move forward that information. Nowadays, that is not the case. There are lots of cases where there's bias, there's false positives, and AI systems are not designed to be able to make those differentiations. So they may be using, they may get into an AI platform, or they may be viewing content that's designed by AI and not be able to differentiate the difference. Even in terms of your child's privacy, what they put online, and then that gets caught up in AI driven tools that are, just it's looking for more data, essentially. AI works on collecting huge amounts of data and using that data to make statistical inferences. So if 9 out of 10 people in Barbados eat at Chefette, then AI is going to have a bias to say, well, Chefette is good, right? So you want to be careful in general with your child using artificial intelligence, having discussions with them about what it is. There are obviously positive aspects to it, and you want to expose them to that at the appropriate time, but just having the conversation so they're aware, right? Where it gets a little more nefarious is in the space of threats. So I'm sure some of you would have seen emails or WhatsApp messages coming from your uncle or your cousin in another country saying that they're stranded and they need help. They need you to send them $100 or whatever. But when you call them, you find out that their account was compromised. In the same way, There are persons who use AI to do such exploits against children, where if your device becomes compromised, the hacker may then use your device to contact your child and say, hey, I need you to do this or to send me this or whatever. So at this moment, it's not extremely prevalent, but it's still there. And it's something that you need to be aware of and to keep in the back of your mind. So talk to your kids. I can't underscore enough how important it is to have regular and open communication with your kids. There's lots of help available online. At UNICEF, we have Protecting Children online portal. And that the links are all here. So when you get the presentation, you can click on them. The International Telecoms Union, ITU, also has a similar portal with lots of tools and information about protecting your kids online. There's the talk checklist. There's an app called Bark, which is a parental control app that's pretty popular. There's Apple and Google. And most of the major platforms, WhatsApp, YouTube, and Instagram, have guides around keeping your kids safe. There's also for you to do your own online research. And in particular, when you're doing your online research, for those who are not technical, to look up VPNs. A VPN is a virtual private network, and it's actually pretty easy to use. It's a bit of software that you will install on your device. And what it does is that it masks who you are. So whether it's, trying to find where you're located or to get onto your system, etc., it acts as a buffer between you and your browsing. And that's something that can be handy, especially as kids get older. I would say 13, 14 and going on, where they're using the internet a lot more. That may be useful for you. So with that, excuse me, I'd like to say thank you for your time. And feel free to ask me any questions that you may have. Back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Beckles, for your very insightful presentation. I know some parents tend to shy away from technology because in many cases it seems overwhelming, and there are so many things that, it takes time to understand. So thank you for taking time to break down many technical terms and explain commonly used jargon, and also taking the time to walk the parents through how to practically navigate the digital age that we are living in. So thank you once again. And so at this time, we are going to open up for a time of Q&A. And so all of those questions that you have been jotting down, since Dimitri would have spoken first, as he was the one who opened this up, this is now your time to ask questions. So you can either use the chat function and raise your hand, and you can unmute and ask your questions, or you can go ahead and drop your question in the chat. You can also indicate who your question is being directed to. So who is going to be our first person for the evening to ask a question? All right, while you're gathering your questions, I will go ahead and ask my first one. I have a question for Dimitri. I know you touched on how, you were very involved in school extracurricularly. When you transition to university, how can you look back and see how being so involved benefited you, especially where you are today? So that is my question to Dimitri.
I think it's just the fact that I was involved in, a couple different activities. Just learning how to manage my time and trying to navigate my way through all those different things I was doing, because in addition to my after school activities, I was also doing stuff outside of school. I was obviously singing. During my last year of school, I started learning guitar. So, I had a lot of different things I was doing. So I think that having all that while doing school taught me how to manage my time better and how to divide my time and know what I need to focus on and what I need to put extra effort into. And I think that all that has helped to make managing my time at UE a little easier. So I think just being so involved would have contributed to that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, there's a question in the chat says, will the parent webinars be made available for attendees? Okay, so I believe this is a question wanted to know about recordings. So yes, recordings will be made available. And if you're interested in accessing any of the recordings for any of these sessions that we have had so far, please just go ahead and reach out to Winner's Circle Coordinator at gmail.com. The recording should be made available for release in the coming week, right? So by Wednesday, you should be able to get a link to the previous recordings. Do you have any more questions for this evening? You're welcome. I think that our presenters did such an amazing job that there are no questions. All right, well, I will ask a second one, and this would be for Mrs. King-Ben. I know you mentioned that your son currently does not have a cell phone, right? How did you all really go about explaining to him, the reasoning behind that? I know you touched a bit on it, but I'm sure some parents are on here like, how did you do that? How did they even understand? How did you get past the child throwing tantrums? So can you explain a bit more of how that process was for you and just the reasoning behind it as well?
Okay, so of course he still hasn't understood, but we continually said to him, that's point one. Point two, it's a consistent talk that my husband and I, so we maintain the same tone and we maintain the same, what's the word I want to say? I forgot my words. We're not against each other. My husband and I are not against each other. We believe the same thing, and the same thing is spoken to our first son. So some of the examples we will use, when you're in class, we can see how your attention would drop, and then you would just automatically want to go and take out the phone and start to use it during class, and then you get into trouble, right? So we do know that cell phones are not supposed to be used in school actively at home, during class time. So we would more use his examples of him not being responsible and him not being accountable as one of the reasons why we will not give you a cell phone. Because we can see that it will land him in a lot of trouble. So we use his current behavior to demonstrate why he cannot get a cell phone. And on top of that, the school has a phone and he's picked it from school and dropped off at school. So there's no cell phone as required, in our opinion.
There was a follow-up question in the chat, which I think you made mention of. Did you find that your son was more focused in school without the cell phone?
Well, he doesn't have one, and no, he's not focused. So he can't get a cell phone, I'll be honest. So I mentioned he plays the cricket, and so we're just trying to get that balance between the cricket and the schoolwork too. So it's an ongoing challenge. But I have been told that boys mature later than girls. So I wait for that maturity date. Some of them mature at 16 years old and mature in a year's time. So I'll see what the reform beholds for me as we enter it next month. But it's still an ongoing challenge.
I could imagine, but that is good. That is good. Very applaudable as well, because I've noticed that, parents usually many parents pass off the cell phone or even the electronics as a way to keep children distracted, and out of the way. So that is very applaudable. Any other questions at all?
Jennifer, good afternoon, first of all. I
Good
would just like to say something further to Keisha's
Go ahead.
thing. Good afternoon to everyone. In terms of the cell phone usage, that is going to be a big challenge. One of the biggest challenges that parents will find, and children, because they are so moved by peer pressure, they're going to be, if they're not strong, they're going to fall for it. And they're going to bug you constantly, until some parents eventually give in by telling them, okay, if you do well, you will get the phone. But the child, they do well, they push because they want the phone. And when they get the phone, that's the answer. They stop working. So I think we have to look beyond even the end of term. If we can get our children to start realizing that they're really building their future. Let's use Keisha's son. He's into cricket. Where does he want that cricket to take him? Does he just want to play for his school? Or does he just want to do it to keep fit? So we can start looking at scholarship opportunities. There's some scholarships available for cricket. And now that the US is getting involved in cricket, I'm sure they're going to develop more. But there's Dollar Academy, Keisha, you can check it out. Dollar Academy, they usually get cricket scholarships. And then there's also Murdoch University in Australia. They also offer cricket scholarships. So if you can get your child to start thinking about setting what I call a bullseye, I would like a cricket scholarship. And it is possible. It is possible. And then you also have the UWC. Jennifer, you can speak to that at length. You have the United World College scholarships, where he can work towards getting a scholarship. And getting a scholarship means that somebody out there, some university out there is going to see you as investable material. You look good. Your qualities look good. Your certificates, your qualifications look good. And they see you as a rounded person, not only your qualifications, but what you're offering, your leadership skills and your volunteering, your community work and all that. So when they look at a total person, they say, yeah, we want this person. So I would like us to start getting our children to look beyond the next term. Let them look at what they're going to produce at the end of their school year, their school time. So fifth form, even though they're entering first form, what kind of person would you want to look like? What would you want to look like at fifth form, at the end of fifth form? What kind of mark do you want to make in this school? So therefore, you have that goal out there, and therefore you're going to start working backwards. And if you can get him involved in talking to people who have had scholarships, or even start connecting with that university to see what they're offering and what is required, the type of student that they want, then you might find that that might help him to have long-term goals more so than along with his midterm goals.
Thank you, Mrs. Grant. That was very good. That, Mrs. King-Ben, she spoke about how, she sits with her sons and makes goals. And I think that every parent should do that with their child. Like, think about not just now, not just the term or the school year, but in 5 years' time and ahead, as Mrs. Grant says, like university, start even thinking about university from now, though it seems like a very far time ahead. We can all agree that the years just seem to be flying by and they all seem to be merging together very quickly, so it's very, very good to be goal oriented when it comes to your children. And you would have learned from Dimitri's story how he was very involved in secondary school, and it taught him different skills, like just even managing your time, how to manage your time in university. And that's very important, and they learned that from even first form, having school, going to school from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then having some extracurriculars after school and learning how to navigate the social life, the extracurricular life, and also the academics, it really positions them from young. And though you're thinking, oh, university and scholarships are very far ahead, these are all things that universities look at as, because Mrs. Grant said it is an investment that they make in your child. It's not just some money, it's not just a free place in their institution, but it literally is an investment in hopefully your children in the future. I see Dimitri has popped up. Would you like to add something as well?
Yeah, really quickly. I know we're talking about further down the line and planning and everything. And as much as that is very, very important, we also have to remember to enjoy it, enjoy our school time and enjoy our university time, because we're also going through these institutions to not only learn, but to also gain experiences and to have fun and become better people. So, it can't just always be about the work. It can't just always be about the academic side of things. We also have to enjoy what each institution has to offer. And I'll give an example. When I was at St. Michael, coming out of it, I realized I was very tunnel vision. Like, I always focused on the work. So I said once I got to UE, I would make it my mission to have a balance, be able to stay the good academic student that I was, while also enjoying what UE has to offer. And, so far, I feel like I've been able to do that. So I just want to say, as much as we do have to focus on the future and stuff, we also have to enjoy the present while we still have it.
So good. So good. Thank you for sharing, Dimitri. Very, very important. Very, very important. All right. Any final questions at all? All right, I'll answer my final question. And that will be to Mr. Beckles. I know that you spoke on, making safeguarding the center of everything you do. And you also mentioned, parents implementing, internet controls and safety, especially through the use of VPNs. Are there any companies that you would recommend parents to secure their services in terms of internet safety?
Well, I wouldn't recommend a particular company per se, because there are a few out there. There's ExpressVPN, there is OpenVPN, there are a few. But what I would more say is to leverage your network. Whether it's someone that's good at IT or just doing online research. It's more about having the information you need for the particular challenge at hand. So in some cases, the VPN may be the answer. In some cases, it may be controls on the device. In some cases, it may be the conversation that you need to have about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. So really, yeah, I guess that's how I will answer that question. But before I would like to add a comment though. I think the young man made a really good observation just now about it's not just about the work. One of the things that I found extremely valuable about my journey through education, I have two best friends. We met in First Form Foundation School in 1993. That's over 30 years. We've been to university together. We've encouraged one another with our jobs. And I think there's really a much bigger question to ask about the type of person you're training your child to become, the type of life experiences that you want to have, that you want them to have. I'm really seeing how all of these things fit together. So taking that view, then answer some of the questions below. So for example, like how Keisha would have mentioned, like their sons don't have cell phones because they want them to focus on other things. They want them to build, the communication skills, speaking to each other, getting into sports. So some of the smaller things that you may end up, back and forthing on, if you answer that bigger question of like, what do I want my child to accomplish, or what do I want to cultivate in my child? does help to answer a lot of those questions, further down. So kudos to Dimitri. That was a really insightful comment. Over.
Thank you very much. There's one question here, and we can make that our last question from Tanya. It says, what happens if your child doesn't know where they want to be or to do in 5 years right now? What goals should you focus on? And so, Mrs. King,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I wanted to jump in on that one. Yeah, I think from my end, because I'm having discussions with my niece and nephew, they're 19 and 20 around that. So it's a little different, but but for me, I try to focus on where do they want to go. So if you don't know, that's okay, right? It's a journey, it's not an end point. You may start off doing engineering and then you decide you want to do art or whatever. So for me, it's a journey, and things like there's certain things that you can focus on that are timeless, or it applies to all, whichever path they choose. So things like excellence, being, whatever you choose to do, try to do it to the best of your ability. Things like time management, being on time, things like being trustworthy, or having high levels of integrity, so that whether you are a truck driver or astronaut, all of those things apply. And eventually, as they find their way through the path, those types of character qualities will help them regardless of where they go. Things like hard work, etc. Over.
Thank you. And Mrs. King,
I can just add my 2 cents. I know they may not know in first form, but I think right now I just expose them to many experiences as much as possible. So they're open, their mind can open, and they can get an idea of what's out there. So you as a parent need to still clue into their likes and dislikes and navigate your way based on what their triggers are. So I think having experiences are key at this moment. So you have to use a wider business network or a wider network that the parent is currently in, that you can open up and expose your child to that individual or to that particular arena.
All right. Thank you so very much for answering that question. And so we've come to the end of our Q&A. And so on behalf of Winners Circle Inc. and Camp Transition, I would love to thank each of the speakers this evening for taking time out of your schedules to be here and for sharing the very important information, tips, and strategies with the parents as they navigate this new chapter with their children. We are truly appreciative of the knowledge and wisdom shared by each of you. And so thank you once again, Dimitri, Mr. Beckles, and Mrs. Kingben for being here. We have 2 final sessions in the series. Can you all believe how quickly time is just flying by? And if you would have missed the first session, the first 2 sessions at least, which was the first was on the transition to secondary school by Mrs. Margaret Grant. The second was Supporting Your Child, How to Be Their Best Cheerleader by Miss Shelley Herbert. If you are interested in accessing those recordings, you can go ahead and email winnercirclecoordinator@gmail.com. And as I would have said earlier, the recordings will be made available by midweek next week. All right. And so this evening we had Realities of Secondary School Life, which was an amazing webinar. Next week, we will be hearing from Mr. Tony Alton, who is an executive leadership development trainer, and he will be speaking on emotionally intelligent parenting. So you definitely do not want to miss that. It's a very, very relevant topic in today's society. And Finally, we will be hearing from Madam Justice Barbara Cook Aline on the 7th of September. So in the next 2 Saturdays, and she will be speaking on you, your child, and the law. And so it's the same Zoom link, same Zoom information for the next 2 Saturdays, same time, 4 p.m. And we are looking forward to having you join us once again. You have also listened to the speakers for the past hour and a half. We have been having fun and we would love to hear from you. And so I just dropped a link in the chat to a Google form, a very quick, short, brief Google form. We would love to hear how the session has been for you today. And so we just ask that you kindly fill it out. Just spare 2 minutes in filling that out for us. We also take this time again to thank our sponsors, the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, who have made the 2024 Parent Webinar Series possible and who have also supported our 2024 programs and initiatives. We are very, very grateful to them. I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Grant at this time to give her closing remarks. We would not have heard from her at the beginning, but she jumped in the middle, and so we will hear from her now as we close out.
Okay, good afternoon again, and it's really great to see the panel and to hear the panel as well. I really learned a lot, and it's good to even see 3 of my former students as if they're catching up to me. Jennifer, Dimitri, and Keisha, it's really good to see how you all have developed, and we pray that you'll continue to do well. Mr. Beckles, thank you once again for joining us and bringing some really well thought out information that every parent needs at this time. I want to also mention that there were some students who missed our camp transition, which was held from the 12th to the 16th of August. And we have had some requests for those students who some went overseas and some got the information late. But we are going to have an online version, and it would be for 3 sessions, and from the 4th of September to the 6th of September from 3 to 6:30 p.m. And this would really help your children to jumpstart into secondary school, recognizing that there's so many areas that you have to consider as they go into secondary school. So parents, if you know of somebody who missed the formal camp, the day camp, and they really still want to, especially if the child is shy, very shy, the only one going to his or her secondary school, they've been separated from their friends and they're the only one going there. If they're a child who finds it really, nerve-wracking to settle in new environments easily, if they're scared, if they're speaking of being nervous, just let them attend, because we want to help each and every one, and we want them to be able to enter secondary school with confidence and with goals. Okay. And I would also say too that parents, Keisha had mentioned about year 11 meetings. Those year 11 meetings are very, very important, and the PTA meetings. And sometimes some parents tend to think, well, my child don't give me no trouble, so I don't need to go to those meetings. You need to go. You need to go, whether your child, or some people say, well, I know I can hear bare negative things, so I'm not going. Please go. Because when you go to those meetings, you get to be all the teachers, and you get to see your child as a student. You know your child as a child, but many people don't know their child as a student. And sometimes the child as a student is so different from the child that you will play with or whatever, or even have some casual conversations with. And it was during COVID that parents got to meet their child as a student, and many of them couldn't deal with it because it was like, whoa, where you come from? But I want you to, in the book, Entering Secondary School that I co-authored, there at the back, there are some pages that you can actually write in or even reproduce. And there's one called the Year 11 Meeting Guide for Parents. When you go to those Year 11 meetings, don't just accept from the teacher that your child is okay. Your child might be a boy. They say, well, boys, you know how boys are. No, you don't. You want to know about your child, and you want some real deep information about your child. So you're going to have some questions for each teacher. How is my child progressing in your class, in your subject? How is my child performing? You want to know about the conduct of your child in that individual class. You want to know about his attitude. You also want to know about your child's strengths. And this will really show that the teacher really knows your child. What are my child's strengths as you see it from your perspective in teaching that particular subject? What are my child's weaknesses? And you're not just going to end there. How can we tackle the problems that you see my child having? So when you leave there, you have gone to 13 to 15 teachers and you've been writing down everything they have said. You have this matrix, you're completing it. When you are finished, you have a complete picture of your child, okay? So parents, do not accept, your child is okay. Your child is doing okay. You don't want your child to be doing okay. You want your child to be doing excellent. As Mr. Beckles said, excellence is what if you don't have any other goals, let your child strive for excellence. If your child wants to get grade 1s at CSEC, they have to start now. So it means that 75% in every subject should be the least that your child is looking for or feels comfortable with. If you're looking at grade 1, 75 and up, yeah? So even if your child got an exercise and it's out of 20 marks, your child should not feel comfortable. Your child should be aiming for 15 or more. If it's out of 15, should be aiming for 12 or more. So get your child into that kind of momentum so that they get to realize that, excellence is what I'm working for, because every child will have what we call a confidential card. And that's why the school would ask you to submit a little photo of your child. They put that on the confidential card. And from term 1, at the end of term 1, all the marks that your child got in the work, will go there. And for every term until they finish school, the marks go there. At the end of the school year, when your child applies to a university, one of the first documents the university is going to ask for is a transcript. Whoever creates a transcript at the school will go and pull your confidential card, your choice confidential card, and all the grades that are written there would just be, channeled over into the transcript. That becomes the transcript. So if your child did not do well in first, second, third form, even though some universities will say that we're looking at the last 3, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we don't want your child to wait till then. We want your child to start now. Start good now. Maintain that excellence. And then you'll find that your child likes success and they continue to work at it. All right. So parents, we really do want to thank all of you for coming. And wherever we can help, remember, we are here to help you. Those of you who attended Camp Transition, your children attended Camp Transition, remember that we're offering you free counseling up to the 31st of December, 2024. Don't let the sessions go wasted. Your child needs tools, and we are here to help you, understand where what those tools are, and also help your child develop the skills to use them. Okay, so thank you once again, everyone, and thank you, Jennifer, for doing an excellent job also, along with the presenters. So kudos to each and every one of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Grant. Thank you again to Madam Justice Barbara Aline, who isn't here, for creating this space for the parents. Thank you again to our sponsors, the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, for their support of our 2024 programs. Thank you to our amazing presenters this evening for your time and all of the strategies shared. And thank you again, parents, for being here, especially our repeat attendees. We see you, we appreciate you for coming with your enthusiasm and participation as well. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same time and same Zoom link. So have a wonderful rest of your weekend, everyone. Bye.
What is Winner's Circle Inc?
This 2008 registered charity prepares children for the transition from primary to secondary school.
Are parents involved?
Yes, parents are sensitized about the important role they play in this process and their children's development.
Winner's Circle Inc. Helping you be a winner by making the right choice.